America's education system is in crisis. Area corporations report finding that as few as 1 in 7 job applicants has the basic math and reading skills needed for modern industrial jobs. The unemployment rate for high school dropouts is twice as high as for graduates. Nearly 2 out of 3 state penitentiary inmates have not completed high school. And some schools are seeing nearly 7 out of 10 students leave school without a diploma. It doesn't have to be that way.
These are some things that you learned in maybe grade school somewhere along the way, but apparently from your drafts have since then forgotten.
I learned it.
This is the sound of students excited about education. And these are images of a community getting involved. Good evening, I'm Don Marsh. Tonight, Channel 2 is proud to begin a special 2-year project entitled Great Expectations. It shows that education can succeed if we all get involved. With me is Channel 2's education reporter, Sharon Stevens.
Thank you very much, Don. In recent times, the failures of our system of education have been well chronicled and debated. Our purpose in this program is to highlight some successes that may point the way toward a brighter future. We're going to begin with a documentary profile of 2 very different schools that are doing some very special things to get their students and their communities excited about education.
And we have gathered a distinguished panel of educators, community leaders, parents, and students here at the Sheldon Concert Hall in Midtown St. Louis. Immediately following the documentary, we'll have a special town meeting discussion of the issues raised in our special report. Educating our children is perhaps the most important challenge facing our community and our nation. Please stay with us.
Children well, their father's help did slowly go by.
We must do what first? Multiply.
Is the United States the world's largest nation?
No.
Don't you ever ask them why. If they told you, you would cry.
And they'd be 2 different pictures.
Well, let me see if you're really in good shape.
What is the verb?
Come on, folks, let's cooperate so we can all graduate.
Parkway North High School and Walbridge Elementary School are 2 very different schools, facing very different challenges, but they share a common goal: give students the support, the inspiration, and the knowledge they need to become successes in life. Walbridge and Parkway North are schools with great expectations. Eric Greetens is a junior in high school. He lives with his parents and 2 brothers in a comfortable West St. Louis County neighborhood. His plans for the future include attending college and becoming president of the United States.
I think he'd be a good president. I think he's really cares about other people.
The Greetens family has made sacrifices to make sure that the future president and his brothers get a good education.
For what we paid for the small house we bought, we could have practically bought our dream house in another area of the city, but that was okay because it was the most important thing to us was that our kids were going to be going into Parkway School District.
Parkway North is part of the largest school system in the county, and among the larger systems, its reputation for excellence is second to none. In the St. Louis metropolitan area, just 60% of all students graduate from high school. But at Parkway North, more than 90% graduate, and 90% of its graduates go to college.
From the time I was little, when I started thinking about it, I never had any doubt that I would go to college.
Eric is highly motivated. President of the Key Club, on the soccer team, a member of the tutoring club, the school leadership program, and so on.
I think Parkway North it's a great school, and it's because all of the kids, all of their parents, all of the teachers, and all of the administrators, everybody's kind of working towards the same goal, just to make it a great school.
North's principal sees a lot of highly motivated students and gives parents much of the credit.
A great majority of our community is very supportive of education. And as a result, our kids come here with a value system that says that learning is important. They have goals beyond high school, and those goals help motivate them while they're in high school.
Parkway North is not just a school for suburban kids. More than 20% of the school's students are from the city, participants in the school desegregation plan. And many are from neighborhoods where the dropout rate is more than 50%.
Our goal is to bother every kid every day, but we want to bother them in a way that says we want you to be the best that you can be. And if you're not interested in that, you're not going to fit in.
Teachers at North are encouraged to try new things. In her English class, Carol Kohler has her students conduct their own discussion of Arthur Miller's The Crucible.
Which character do you believe would be considered the most evil person in this movie? Why?
She was just overpowering everybody.
Yeah, like everybody in the town.
And the voices and outrage and the words that she says, like...
Yeah, that's because, like, on page 104, and well, on our thing it said that, who's really in charge of the court, because whatever Abigail would say, everybody would believe her, because she has all these friends backing her up.
So I decided to get rid of book reports in my class because students weren't doing them, they weren't reading the books, they were getting cliff notes, they were cheating.
Do you think being in a group encourages other people to read the book more than when you're doing book reports? Do you think more people would read the book if you're in a book group like this?
Yeah, they can hear this, and when we read the book reports.
Yeah, we basically knew if we didn't read the book, we'd be kicked out of the group.
They're reading the books. I'll guarantee they're reading the books.
For North students who hunger for intellectual athletics, there's lots to choose from. The sponsor of the math club taught in 3 other systems before coming to North. He was frustrated.
It was at times almost a joke if a faculty member would bring up something and say, this is for the good of the students. Because there was too much of this me, me, me. What's good for the staff? What's good for me as a teacher? Instead of the teacher looking at what's good for the students, whereas it was a complete reversal when I got to this district. If you want to justify something, you justify it in a sense of what is good for the student.
Rogers gives ice cream prizes to the kids who win his math contest. The kids go for it.
This is like a bingo card, only it's called Pin Mal because it's Parkway North, Mu Alpha Theta. Here we go. Log base x of 225 equals 2.
Obviously, you find x.
I'm a dreamer, and so most of my dreams that I would like to see happen, I am now trying to get them to happen. Right now, it is happening. I mean, things are, I have been given the freedom to try to realize my dreams.
For my Asian Americans in here, in the Chinese calculating system, what number is this?
This is exactly where I want to be, and I do not want to, quote, move up. I do not want to find this more prestigious position. This is the most prestigious position that I think that I could have. I feel very comfortable in it.
We've got a winner. We've got a real ice cream cone coming up here.
The best teachers may make learning fun, and the brightest students may shine. But the toughest challenge is teaching students who have trouble learning.
We want to find ways for kids to be successful. The idea, though, is not to lower standards, but rather to find support systems that we can put into our curriculum that help all kids learn and meet their needs.
It is easier to set high standards than to find ways to help children to achieve them. That struggle is common both at Parkway North and here at the Walbridge Elementary School. But the community around here is taking the lead in helping kids to achieve those high expectations. Why, even these young second graders are shooting for the top.
When I grow up, I want to go to college for 6 years, and because I want to be a doctor, and I would like to be a doctor because I want to help people. I love to read, write, and I would love to learn how to make books.
Make books? Do you want to write books?
Yes. I like school because you learn and you learn how to spell words that you don't know how to spell, and you look them up in the dictionary.
Okay, how do we spell Saturday? Capital S-A-T-U-R-D-A-Y.
The students at Walbridge, their parents, and the staff are building a model for success. Here you'll find the kids in elementary school, adults in enrichment classes, and both taking advantage of a variety of family services. On most days, Walbridge is open to the neighborhood 14 hours a day.
I guess that's about it.
James Ewing has been the driving force behind Walbridge for 9 years.
Unless we impact the community, what we do in the school is going to meet with not a great deal of success.
Ewing recognized early on that his school and the community that it serves faced a lot of challenges. Many homes and apartments are in disrepair. Unemployment touches many families, while drug trafficking and drug abuse in the community puts many of the students and their families at risk. According to Ewing, 90% of the 585 students in his school live below the poverty line.
You just don't write off human beings. They refuse to be written off. They're going to make their impact one way or the other.
For better or for worse.
For better or for worse.
To protect their neighborhood, the staff and parents at Walbridge have become eager participants in a program called Caring Communities, an innovative effort which combines social and family services with education. Donna Larry is a member of the advisory board and a working mother of 2.
Our community was crying out for that. And it was wonderful that it looked like they came just in time.
The Larry family lives just across the street from Walbridge.
You got your keys, Mom? Yes.
The weekdays begin early and run long for the Larrys, and Caring Communities helps out. The day treatment counseling helped Michael make the transition from Walbridge Elementary to middle school. At 7 a.m., he catches a school bus to Hickey Middle School. As Donna heads to work, Melissa heads over to Walbridge for the Latchkey Center. It keeps the kids safe and occupied before and after school. Caring Communities is designed to help the whole family so the children can stay in school. Its intervention programs identify children at risk and offers help quickly to avoid sending them to foster homes and before they get in trouble with juvenile authorities.
Ms. Hayes, the training session is scheduled for when now? Next Thursday?
A year and a half ago, Khatib Wahid was named project director of the Walbridge Caring Communities program. He's a familiar face around the community school. Prior to his new position, he was the school's coordinator for 5 years.
One of the things that we're dealing with, Don, is trying to remove those barriers that preclude children from being successful in school. Once we remove those barriers, then the children have the same intellectual capabilities of any other child.
Okay.
Teachers can refer children to a Caring Communities intervention program as soon as they spot behavior or academic problems in the classroom.
He has the ability to be an excellent student whenever he decides to.
In cases where there is a concern about the child's welfare, the parents, teachers, and mental health workers work out a home and school-based treatment plan. Counselors then spend an average 20 hours per week with the family until the problem is under control.
In 24 hours to a week, we have workers in the family, in the home, working on the problem. Ordinarily, when children are having problems in the school system, it takes 30 to 90 days to react to that problem.
The key component is that we no longer try to treat at-risk youth without also treating the family. A lot of money and effort goes into treating a child singularly, and then the child has to leave school and go back to the dysfunction from whence he or she came.
At an annual cost of $708 per child, Caring Communities offers prevention and intervention services. To date, it has served 120 families and all of the students enrolled in the elementary school. Caring Communities is a collective effort supported by the St. Louis Public Schools, the Danforth Foundation, and 4 state agencies.
And you have maintained sobriety because, you know, there are different effects that drugs and alcohol have on the unborn.
Caring Communities offers substance abuse counseling, job readiness training, and school nursing services. And the program receives high marks from politicians and area businesses.
we say we make as our collective vocation the building and maintaining of our community in order that we may restore our people to their traditional greatness.
Another goal of the Caring Communities program is to teach the children and adults to take pride in their cultural heritage. This Kwanzaa celebration is based on a traditional African harvest festival.
I think that there needs to be some cultural sensitivity and cultural competence included in the services. So the cultural sensitivity for low-income and children and families who are considered to be, quote, underachievers and at risk, so to speak, cultural activities are very important, I think, to the aspects of raising self-esteem and building a sense of involvement.
I think kids just want somebody to pay attention to them. They want to feel like they're part of something. And I believe that's what Caring Communities is giving them, attention and love. And because you can feel it all around them, they work so hard.
Teach your children well. Teach.
Having great expectations for students is important, but giving them the resources and the support they need to meet them is essential. Here at Parkway North, part of that support involves the basics, reading and writing.
Alicia? DeAndre?
This is a skills class. Students who are having academic problems take it as an elective. Instructors work with the kids in small groups, helping with homework and teaching study skills.
Did you take notes on this first part of the causes? So can you remember any of the causes?
People were borrowing money and they didn't have enough money to pay it back.
Excellent. Mainly we're tutoring one-on-one each student in the subjects that he's most having trouble with, and we help the student to find out why he's having trouble. We might even go to the teacher and ask for copies of old tests and find out why the student couldn't pass that test if he really did think he studied for it.
Minority students tend to do well at Parkway. Both students and teachers are concerned that there are too many minority students in skills classes and too few in honors courses.
So I feel like I'm a part of Parkway North, and that's something that is really profound. I think one of the biggest problems with the school is some of the desegregation students can't say that. They don't feel like they're a part of the school.
We need a 36 in the worst way, right here. We need a 36 right there.
Some of the black students that are coming out here are coming from a different culture. It took me a long time to understand that.
Rogers has taught school for more than 2 decades, but he admits he's had a lot to learn as the number of urban black kids in his classes increased.
And Taylor, 4 goes in there. So if we put a 4...
For a student that is out here in the county, if I am in the middle of lecturing or explaining something and that student is talking or not paying attention, I can oftentimes just go over as I'm talking and put my hand on their shoulder. And I'm not talking about gripping them hard, I'm just talking about putting my hand on the shoulder and just saying, calm down. If I found that when the blacks first came out here, when I did that same thing, just not planning on changing my style whatsoever, I put my hand on the shoulder and I was surprised at how they jumped back. They were so abrupt. It's like, you don't do that to me. Don't you touch me. I was confused. I didn't understand. I mean, well, what did I do? I didn't, you know, I had been doing this for 12, 13 years and there was no problem. So, you know, I started noticing those differences. So there were problems to solve.
Nearly a quarter of North students are black, and there are also a significant number of Asian students and a few Latinos.
And that diversity becomes a strength. because through that diversity, people have to get to know one another and work together as those things that they have in common and interest draw them together. I see that a lot in our club and activity program.
This year, the African American Club and the Key Club worked together on a Martin Luther King Day celebration.
On this next coming Monday, it's January 14th, at 3 o'clock, right next to the library, we are going to hold the Martin Luther King celebration. This was started by the Key Club, but we want the NAAC to be able to participate and to be able to help us.
At least one of the advantages or byproduct, the positive byproducts of desegregation is to have white students and black students work together, students from different cultures work together and share those cultures. And most of the students in the Key Club are white, and the students in the NAAC are black, of course, and consequently there will be an opportunity for the two groups to share and to have cross-cultural growth.
We came up with the idea for the reading of the letter from the Birmingham jail. I really wanted to read this because, you know, it means a lot to me, and I wanted to get involved with the Key Club program.
Well, why does it have to be a male? Okay. Fine, if any male's going to do it.
I have nothing against this program.
And Mia, you're involved in the drama. She's involved in drama.
Perhaps it is easy for those who have never felt the stinging darts of segregation to say wait. But when you have seen vicious mobs lynch your mothers and fathers at will, and drown your sisters and brothers at whim, when you have seen hate-filled policemen curse, kick, and even kill your black brothers and sisters.
The program made students aware of the need for cultural education. Teacher Willie Jenkins recalled a conversation with a student who was having trouble writing an essay on Martin Luther King.
And I said, well, two things you know about Martin Luther King, that he was black and he's dead. And she said, is he dead? She said, well, how was I to know?
Students of all colors and cultures run into trouble inside and outside the classroom that could lead them to drop out. There are several programs for kids who seek help. North's Care Team helps catch those kids who don't. The team includes teachers, counselors, and administrators.
The teacher reports the student is absent frequently, comes to class without homework, and does poorly on tests. Sometimes the student sleeps in class. Her grade in this class is a D at this time, but first quarter she received an F.
Students can be referred to the care team by anyone at the school, including classmates.
Wasn't she a cheerleader? Yeah.
She was, and because of her F, she can't do that, and she's down about that. That's another thing she's been in to talk to me about.
Mary is a frequent visitor to the health room with very vague complaints. Many times she asks to go home. I try to encourage her to stay in the building and rest. She does not eat breakfast quite often, and many times does not take time to eat lunch at school.
One problem she identified was that she said that her mother remarried last year. There was some disharmony between herself and her stepfather, and she said that was one issue that had been coming up.
Well, what do you suggest we do to help her? Apparently what we're doing isn't helping, so...
we tried the tutor club, didn't we?
I
think we referred to the tutor club.
In fact, yeah, I introduced her to Mr. Hunter, and she went
one
once.
time and then didn't go. I think it's time to invite her parents in.
It's time to do something.
Our care team is the first line of defense when we want to deal with problems at school, and they deal with dozens of referrals each year. And as a result, we've been able to maintain low dropout rates and get kids help when they need it quick.
Inside, there is enthusiasm for education, and that atmosphere is created by parents who get involved and teachers who care, administrators who put the needs of the children first. The result, as Don Hugo puts it, is a feeling that if you want to fit in, you must be the best you can be.
At Walbridge Elementary School, what happens outside the school building is as important to the parents, teachers, and staff as what goes on inside.
Come on across.
Kim Cook is the mother of a Walbridge first grader. She is living proof that expectations and determination can bring results. She worried because there were no crossing guards at the busy intersection near Walbridge. So Cook got her neighbors to sign a petition. It worked. The city streets department agreed to pay for a crossing guard, and Cook got the job.
It's a lot more problems we need to get straightened in this neighborhood. And if I see them, I will be out here again trying to do something about them.
Traffic is only one of the dangers Walbridge students face. Drugs and drug-related crimes are common. As we watched Kim Cook escort children on this corner, a police officer cuffed a young man across the street and drove him away.
This particular neighborhood has been targeted by one of the police departments for a special team. And it's because there's a lot of drugs in the neighborhood. The parents are aware of it, the community is aware of it, and we're doing everything we can to try to reduce drug trafficking.
Walbridge Caring Communities is leading the fight on this war on drugs. With the support of 3rd District Police, Khatib Waheed and the program staff lead anti-drug marches twice a month and organize neighborhood watch units. They want to lock up the burglars and the drug dealers. Barney Brown supervises the anti-drug effort.
Last year, Tiffany Sanders, a young female, and Antoine White were killed in drug-related shooting incidents. At that point, the Substance Abuse Task Force of the Walbridge Caring Communities program decided to take an aggressive stand against drug trafficking and violence in the community. You know, drug dealers are kind of like roaches. You know, you turn the lights on and they run to a different spot. But we're determined to follow them wherever they go until they leave the community.
Since Mr. Waheed has been with us over here, he has cleaned up a lot of drugs that was around here and the young men on the corners and stuff. It was really bad then, so if he hadn't jumped in when he did, then I would really be afraid, because we was getting to the point where we didn't even want to go outside.
At any point, the children who are not using drugs now and who march with us and say very enthusiastically, say no to drugs, could become a victim of that tomorrow if not given the positive support and direction.
To help support and guide the students, Walbridge expects a high level of parental involvement. Why some parents even help develop school policy. And mothers groups and the PTO sponsor projects and events.
Children want their parents to be with them and involved with them. It makes them feel special and feel important and loved and cared for.
Donna Larry is the troop leader of Boy Scout Troop 250. She organizes meetings and special projects for 12 boys twice a week.
On my honor, I will do my best. I wanted my son to be able to get into positive activities, and I felt like the best way he could do it is for me to get into them also.
We want our students to be as strong academically as students are in any schools anywhere.
The can-do attitude at Walbridge convinced the state to bring its innovative program, Accelerated Schools, here. This pilot project is designed to bring students' test scores up to and above the national average.
But in order to do that, we've got to have you. We've got to have you helping us as parents. So we're hoping that tonight a number of you will become involved, will sign up, will let us know that you want to work with us.
Are you going to let the bunny out the cage?
Purina Mills is also pitching in. The company is giving each class a pet, pet food, and the other things necessary for a successful adoption. Eleanor Frederick is overseeing the project.
These pets are just about the smallest pets you could own, and they're very dependent on other people. And so the child psychologist and we together were hoping that that would demonstrate better caregiving among the children and greater respect for each other also.
Could I touch it?
And then the second thing is greater learning, seeing learning in a real-life situation. And so we thought that we could position science and math and even reading and writing in a real-life atmosphere.
What's your favorite thing about school?
I like to learn how to do math.
Math. Most people find that pretty hard.
It's not hard to me.
Is school important?
Yes.
Can you tell me why?
Yes. Because you can get a good education in school, so you can learn to read and write, and when you grow up, you will not be dumb. I would like to get a good education because then you can grow up and be anything that you would like to be.
What is the word that has a prefix added to it in this sentence? Can you undo this mess?
Undo.
Walbridge area residents are working hard to undo the problems their children face. The community school, caring communities, and the caring administration of Walbridge Elementary School are helping to build great expectations.
We can say that the children are changing, that the community is changing, and that we are making a difference.
Teach your children well.
Two different schools with different challenges, but the same goal, educating our children. We're here at the Sheldon in Midtown St. Louis to talk with some people who know an awful lot about excellence in education, how to achieve it, and how we can all get involved. We'll do that in just one moment, so please stay with us. I'm going to begin with Don Sente with our questions. The question's a very important part of continuing our documentary, A Tale of Two Schools. Mr. Sente, the superintendent of the Parkway School District, were we on line with our discussion tonight talking about the expectation of achievement, the fact that anticipating success in our children is more or less going to help them achieve it or have them achieve it?
I think you're exactly on target. High expectations, beginning with the community and the parents, and then with the staff is exactly what it's all about.
We have in front of us here Ben Edwards, who is representing A.G. Edwards tonight, but also, and perhaps more importantly on this occasion, Civic Progress. Mr. Edwards, with regard to what you've heard and what you know about the education process in the St. Louis area, those youngsters who do come out of the system and for all intents and purposes cannot calculate, cannot read, and cannot write, how much of a hardship, how much of a burden is that on the business community here?
The business community does have a problem hiring at entry level. We're still able to fill our needs, but we're having to interview maybe 17 people to get a successful employee. We feel that that's the job of the schools, and we want to help in that job because it not only means more success or a future for the St. Louis business companies, but it makes our whole city more attractive to people considering it.
How do you help?
I don't see any real solution to the country's problems in education until we get parents involved as they were in the two schools in the video.
Well, let's meet an involved parent. Harry Haskins is sitting in the back row. Your thoughts about all of this and the importance of parental involvement?
Being involved with the parent associations, the thing I try to stress is self-knowledge. There's a problem in the black community that has pervaded this society for a very long time, and it is self-hate and racism. What I try to deal with the parents is self-hate. Our children are suffering under the burden of self-hate. How can one have great expectations without the true and proper identity with oneself? In a society that creates an atmosphere of low expectations for our children, how can they have great expectations?
Well, you saw the documentary that dealt with the Walbridge Elementary School, and it really seemed, of course, that's just a stroke, it's a snapshot of some time that we spent over there, several hours, but nonetheless just a small portion of time. Were you impressed with what they're doing over there, with the esteem that these kids have for themselves and that the parents have seemingly generated?
Yeah, I was very impressed with that.
James Ewing, who is the principal of Walbridge, and we saw him featured prominently in the documentary. You said to me something during our discussion that was not in that documentary. We skirted around it at one point, and that dealt with my question about people who might write off the kids over there at that school.
If people think for a minute that the miseducation of those children can be carried out and they can be shunted to the side and forgotten, they're sadly mistaken. Can you just imagine a society on which 540 miseducated, angry, unhappy people are leashed upon the society, and that happens here and in other societies across the United States? That's part of the problem. I think we tend to feel if we do just a little bit over here, that's better than they had. We need to roll out the red carpet all across this nation.
Robert Bartman, the Commissioner of Education, is here. Taking Walbridge as an example, and there are some whom, for the sake of discussion here, some might object to the notion of turning our schools, if you will, into social service agencies. We've got the mental health agency involved in Walbridge and 3 others. It's a very robust commitment, if you will. But should we be doing it that way?
In some instances, that is absolutely the best way to do it. The school needs to be the center of the community in every way. And if that's where the youngsters come, and that's where the youngsters need to feel comfortable in being, and the families need to be associated directly with the school. And if they can get services at the school that are needed services, that brings the kids and the families into the school environment where they're both being served.
Let's go to Mr. Rush, who is the acting president of the St. Louis School Board, a body which in itself is in some disarray, if I may say so today. One of the figures that was pointed out in the documentary, I believe, I've certainly heard it a lot recently, 1 in 4 students in the state of Missouri, I believe it is, does not graduate as a dropout. Considerably higher than that in the city of St. Louis, and we can argue whether it's 50% or even a little bit higher than that. To my way of thinking, if I may be permitted an editorial comment, that bespeaks a failure of the system if half the kids who start don't finish. Am I wrong?
You're absolutely right, Don. Your documentary tonight was entitled A Tale of Two Schools. Perhaps more aptly, it should have been titled A Tale of Two Cities or A Tale of Two Societies. We in the city and our students in the city have some special problems that the children in the Parkway school system don't necessarily face. We are failing. When I say we are failing, I'm talking about everybody in this audience, regardless of what school district they're in, because we're all part of one society. We're approaching a point where in the city 50% of our school kids are dropping out prior to graduation. And those kids that graduate, 2/3 of them will not test at the national norms on the national achievement tests. If we were producing a product coming down an assembly line rather than a student, we would be out of business. We would be bankrupt because nobody would buy our products. Mr. Edwards was speaking about the difficulty of hiring quality graduates and making them productive members of our society. That is a problem that has to be addressed, not just by the teachers, not just by the principals, but by all segments of our society. And unfortunately, there are few gems out there like Walbridge School where the community is gathering around that. But even where the community gathers around it, the community alone is not going to solve that unless we expand our expectations, until the parents in Parkway begin to worry about what's happening to the children in St. Louis.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but you're here and you're on it nonetheless.
Certainly.
What sort of signals does the school board send to the system? I mean, it's a mess right now. It can't even elect a president. We're heading into an election that is going to be probably as polarized as anyone can think of in recent St. Louis city history. The signals that you folks are sending are not positive ones.
In many cases, they're not, but in many cases, they are. The school board, if you look and see, while there's a diverse group of citizens that sit on that board and they're all elected, they represent different constituencies in our society. I think we've been working together, moving forward on many areas. There are, of course, areas where we have disagreements on, electing a president being one.
Mr. Ewing, may I put you on the same spot? what sort of a message does all of this administrative stuff send to you in the trenches?
I want to be working tomorrow morning. Right now, the employees of the Board of Education, that includes administrators and teachers, I think have pulled back the wagons and are waiting for something, the shoe to drop or something to happen. We're going about our business, but until the board can actually discuss and vote out in a nonpartisan fashion with the education of students as the primary purpose of that vote, until they can do that, the kinds of people we are, we do our jobs every day, but we just can't reach up until that business gets straightened out.
I'd like to turn now to Sister Marianne Eckhoff, who is the superintendent of the Archdiocesan schools here. We've talked about a 50% dropout rate in the city of St. Louis. What's the dropout rate in the largest school district in the state of Missouri, Sister?
3%.
3%. 60,000 students. I think you've got to get together with some folks here and tell them how you do that.
We'd love to.
Well, tell us now then, please.
I think many of the things that you saw in that documentary tonight, what you saw in those two schools, we have seen as hallmarks of our schools always. Strong leadership, involved parents, expectation of children to learn, caring teams of teachers, an attitude that, in fact, success is catching. If students feel like they are cared for and that they are good people and that they can do things, they will learn. In this state, there are roughly 12% of the students that are educated in something other than a public school. In this metropolitan area, in the Catholic schools alone, there are 23% of the students. What I think is very important for this community, if we're talking about community effort, is to make sure that we are concerned about the education of all children, not just those who choose to go to public schools. And I think when parents can make a choice about where they go to school, they have an investment that they don't have when they can't make a choice.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask one question of Lillian Parks, who is the superintendent of the East St. Louis School District, before we take a break. One of the best things about East St. Louis is its school system. It has generated some very well-motivated, educated, culturally literate, and wonderful athletes, if I may say so. It's one of the bright spots of the city school system. But you'll admit, as any of the folks here, you've got a long way to go. Is it fair, as we have begun to do here, and we'll explore this, to pit a public school system against a private, if you will, in this case, a parochial school system? To compare the two?
Compare as far as academics and dropout rates, etc.
And all of what we've discussed thus far, yeah.
I think it's fair. There is a difference, however. In public schools, we must educate all children. As Sister pointed out, you don't select. And if your children are supposed to go to school, in East St. Louis, for example, we must educate them. We can't exclude them on any basis. I think that when we think about the dropout rate, for example, 3% is admirable. Contrary to popular belief, however, East St. Louis's dropout rate is about 15%. It isn't 40 or 50. We work at it. Even though we don't always have the opportunity to select students per se, we do marvelous things with our students. And one of the things that I like about Great Expectations, from what I could see from your promotional film that you showed, is that you're going to be doing some other things and you're going to talk about some things that are going right in education. I don't think we do enough of that. I don't think we tell enough about the successes that we have.
Stay with us. We're right back. My colleague and friend Sharon Stevens obviously are very much a part of what we're doing tonight and what we've done before that, but we haven't gotten to hers yet. Sharon, some thoughts from you, if you will, on the work that you've done on this and the things that sort of jumped out at you.
Well, one of the things I saw out at Parkway is that the students I talked to, the teachers, the administrators, they're all very comfortable with each other. Certainly there is a line that you see and you know that this is the voice of authority over here and you are the student, but it was something almost approaching friendship, and I found that interesting. Of course, that's easy if you're in an area where you have resources. People who live out in the Parkway District do not worry about whether they're going to have a bond issue passed every 30 years. It's going to be passed. They're going to have the money. That certainly makes a difference. On the other hand, what I saw about Walbridge that I thought was even more interesting was that this is a very emotional, caring community. And against all of the odds that everybody said this community faced, there are people in that community who said, forget the odds. These are our children. We're going to take care of them. And we're going to make sure that they have every advantage here that they have out in Parkway North.
Bob Bartman, question of funding has just come up. If we want equality in education and we're basing the funding of the education on the property tax, obviously the poorer districts are not going to achieve that equality, or are they somehow?
Well, it's not a straight line graph that you would chart out to determine the relationship between resources and quality of education. But I would be quick to add that without the resources, it's virtually impossible to provide a good quality education. We have a disparity in expenditures in our state between about $2,300 per pupil and $8,100 per pupil, and it's clear from any view that the district that can only muster the kinds of resources that would support a $2,300 per pupil education is not going to be able to put on the same kind of programming that and sustain the same kind of effort in the educational program as the district that is able to muster $8,100. And the distinction is the property wealth, and it's the state's responsibility to neutralize that distinction by putting more state dollars into those districts that are poor.
All right, let me ask Sister, if I may, your ideas about funding of education.
To some extent, if we just say we have to continue to do more of the same, then I don't think we're ever going to do it. I think we ought to be creative. Can't we try it someplace, get a pilot going in some instance where we can say, let's give parents an opportunity to take some tax dollars and say, I want to spend it at X school, and let the private enterprise system operate in the educational system.
Doug Rush, let me turn to you. The city of St. Louis, I believe my figure is correct here, spends about $6,000 a year.
It probably approaches that.
What would the city school system think about, as we've heard suggested before, taking that $6,000 and having it spent elsewhere?
I think that there's definitely a need for a new approach at looking at education. But I think the hope is a false hope that somehow by giving parents a voucher or a tuition system that they are somehow going to be able to have choice in education. The reality of a system like that will be that the poor still will not have any choices, because it will divert large amounts of money from the public education system to the private education system. It's not going to dramatically increase the number of children that are going to Sister Eckhoff schools, but what it is going to do is subsidize those parents who are now paying for it out of their own pocket.
Now for the portion of the program that is generally the most provocative, that being questions from the audience. We have a number of them here tonight. Let's get started right away, and we have a gentleman directly behind this camera. Go ahead, sir, with your question.
Yes, I have a question I would like to direct to Mr. Rush, Acting President of the Board of Education. Will you share with this audience this evening what you, as leader of the board, will do and can do to alleviate and stop the factionalism, the lack of commitment, bad press all over the nation about the St. Louis Board?
One of the problems that we see, I think, is the factionalism issue, I believe, has been blown out of proportion, and I'll give you a few examples. We recently passed a budget for our school system for this year with a unanimous vote. It was the first time since I've been on the board that a budget passed with a unanimous vote. We are currently engaged in selecting a new superintendent. All factions of the board, if we want to call them factions, all groups of the board have been working together harmoniously in that search. There are many things going on currently where, at least under my leadership, and it's only been since August, I've been trying to bring all groups together on that board, and I'm not affiliated with either of the two groups that people normally associate.
Eric Greitens had a comment he wanted to make. Make that, Eric, as I move over here to the other side for another question, please.
I think that we need to change our focus from arguing about factionalism on the board or about budgets to actually focusing on the different communities in the schools. If the documentary represented anything to me or proved anything to me, it was that the community desire to make a good school, to educate their children, was what made the good school. Parkway is a good school not because of its resources, it's a better school because of its resources. You saw the care team at Parkway North, students, teachers, parents, counselors getting involved. At Walbridge Elementary, you saw examples of scout leaders, of safety patrol, people initiating their own programs because they were interested in helping their school. It's too easy for us to focus on budget, on the money, on the factionalism on the board. We need to take it upon ourselves to make our schools and our community a better place.
Indeed, let us not forget that the students have a role in all of this, too, after all. Your question, please. Go ahead.
I'd like to thank the panelists for their nice comments tonight and for the information that they're sharing regarding education for our youngsters. But I'd like to say, we at Matthews Dickey Boys Club, we are doing something about the education of our young people within the community. And it's with the help of people from all over St. Louis, not only from the North St. Louis area, but from throughout St. Louis. We recruit tutors who come in and work with us. But I'd like to say to the gentleman who talked about the hatred that's stemming or perpetuated throughout the community, let's not dwell on that. This is the 90s. Let us dwell on loving our children enough where they will leave home every day knowing that no matter what anyone says to them, that they can do well and excel in school. This is what is important for us today. We have to know that we have to teach our children that no matter what is said to them, they have to be able to succeed on their own recognizance. And I thank you very much for this comment.
I think that's a very eloquent example, if I may say so, of exactly what we're trying to accomplish here in this community, and thank you for it. Now, as we really wind down, give me, if you will, what you can do to stimulate this whole process. Harlan Hodge.
Well, me as a student, I feel that firstly, if I can acquire a certain amount of benefits, that I should point out those benefits to another person who seems to be in the situation that I used to be in. And as I go on, if I can look out for the people around me, they'll support me in my time of need. And that's what our community needs. And I feel that we as a black person and my race especially needs that kind of support. And when we develop that support in ourselves, we can become a supporting factor in the community. And that is what St. Louis needs as a whole, to support each other in each of our efforts.
James Ewing.
This evening, a mother called and said, my son thought he was smart. He came home without his homework. He didn't know I was going to call you and see if you would open the door and let him come back and get his homework. True story. So the little guy came and he got his homework.
And he'll never forget it again.
Yeah, that's what I said to him. I said that to him. As long as parents can make phone calls like that, we're going to have the support we need to make the Walbridge School a better place for our boys and girls.
Walbridge is a great story, believe me. That's quite a school and quite a group of people over there. As I mentioned earlier, this program is really just the beginning of Great Expectations, Channel 2's long-term commitment to education through special programming, community activities, and news coverage. As we close tonight, here is a very brief look at some of the things that we'll be doing in the coming months. Thank you all so very much for being with us tonight. Godspeed.
Thank you.
What is Channel 2's educational project, Great Expectations?
Great Expectations is designed to focus attention on education and to motivate parents and the community to help educate our children.
How will this be done?
On Channel 2, we'll have special programs addressing education, such as news documentaries, special segments on 2 News, Turnabout, and St. Louis This Week. We'll also have primetime dramas, education moments, pop quizzes, and class acts. In the community, we'll offer reading sessions at libraries by 2 News anchors and reporters. We'll also have a school volunteer hotline, a children's art project and essay contest, as well as adopt-a-school projects.
How can I get involved?
You can help by watching Channel 2's Great Expectations programs with your children and participating in our community service projects. If we all work together, every child can have great expectations.
Them on your dreams, the one they fix, the one you know by. Don't you ever ask them why. If they told you, you would cry. So just look at them and sigh.